Bickley and Marotta mornings. Arizona sports. The local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
Torey Lovullo has made a lot of tough conversations this year, from coddling Corbin Carroll to benching Paul Sewald to telling Christian Walker he did not make the National League All-Star team, and yet nothing might compare to the road ahead for the Diamondbacks manager, which means telling your best starting pitcher he's no longer a starting pitcher. That's what's on the line with Jordan Montgomery v. Ryne Nelson, where everybody assumes that Lovullo will side with the pricey, pedigreed veteran at the expense of a third-year player with 17 career wins. Because that's conventional wisdom, because that's what most managers would do, because Jordan Montgomery's been part of a championship team, and that ring means something. But these two pitchers aren't even close at the moment. Ryne Nelson has been a monster since July 2nd. His ERA is 2.93. His whip is less than 1. His strikeout rate is an unbelievable 25.5%, and that's a lot of starting pitcher to send off to the bullpen. Now, chances are Montgomery will do well today. He's facing a bad team away from Chase Field, where Montgomery has really struggled, and chances are Nelson will get one more start. But this decision is looming, and this decision is inevitable, and this decision is fraught with peril. And you hope whatever he chooses, it doesn't reverberate the wrong way in a clubhouse full of young players who have grown to believe that excellence will be rewarded in Arizona, not reputations and not politics. All right, today's Bickley Blast brought to you by my great friends at Chapman BMW, who make luxury attainable. Find them online at chapmanbmw.com. All right, big decision ahead for the Diamondbacks. Torey Lovullo, the idea of having a six-man rotation. Will it go on another weekend? That seems to be my gut feeling on the matter. I may be wrong about this, but it feels like to me, because Zach Gallen is coming off the injury or the cramping stuff that he had, and he hasn't been good because Merrill Kelly had a start where his velocity was down. They might roll this thing back one more time, because it would really feel wrong to bench Ryne Nelson after we saw last Friday, where I was transfixed by the quality of his fastball.
He is just his stuff in particular, the stuff. We're so about the stuff with these D-backs, Justin Martinez and the stuff that he's got in the pen. And Ryne Nelson, that has been the big jump for him this year. I think that you look at his numbers previously and you look at them now, the swing and miss and all that kind of stuff, and particularly, again, going back to the fastball, we talked about how Zach Gallen's struggles this year have largely been tied to his fastball on yesterday's show, and today that can be a lot of the success. Where I start to get some trepidation here, and it's just at the beginning stages here, don't get me wrong, and let me know if I'm getting too out of hand here, Dan, with what I'm about to suggest. But
right,
if Jordan Montgomery's place in the pecking order is as so, to the point where he can be vastly the worst pitcher of the two, but because of how much money he is making and because of his past precedent that he has set as a playoff performer and just a really good starting pitcher in general, gets him the nod over Ryne Nelson. Let's say we get to a D-backs postseason where they are using 4 starting pitchers, or maybe even 3 starting pitchers. Does it get to the point now where Jordan Montgomery's getting the nod over Brandon Pfaadt? Because that can't happen either. That really cannot happen to me, especially if Jordan Montgomery doesn't figure things out in the next 6 weeks. But again, I guess it's easy to say Jordan Montgomery's been a playoff performer. He's going to show up here. Brandon Pfaadt has also been a playoff performer. It's a different circumstance. But with that being said, it is a young pitcher against a proven guy over the course of his career, and it's a similar sort of thing. Am I getting too off base here in my early worry?
No, not at all. My gut feeling would be that at that point, I'm not sure either would make the rotation. But again, if you're watching Ryne Nelson morphing into a dominant pitcher, and if you know Ryne Nelson's story, it's a story of a kid who's had a really good fastball, who had to add some supplementary stuff, and he did. And then somewhere around July, he kind of dialed back on the cutter a little bit and started going real heavy with that four-seamer, and the results speak for themselves. His strikeout percentage is up 10% since July. That's a huge number.
And remember, the first third of the season, Torey Lovullo, Mike Hazen, and others were sort of saying these when we had all the injuries to the pitching staff, these young guys are getting a chance to seize the opportunity, and nobody is doing it. And we saw like three or four guys sort of come and go, up and down, up and down. Ryne Nelson was the guy who figured it out finally, and then took off in the second half.
So, and again, and I don't know exactly, and I've kind of riffed on this because knowing sports the way I do and knowing the situations that brought Jordan Montgomery to Arizona in the first place, you don't know if any verbal promises were made to him. Okay, yeah, of course, you're a starter. You'll get 30 starts. You don't know. But I also do know that the way sports works is that GMs and organizations have to be real careful how they handle guys in this situation because there's agents involved. And because you might have to deal with that agent down the road, and because you might have to deal with this particular player down the road, and because as a young player, Ryne Nelson's under the Diamondbacks' control. So there's a lot of things when it comes to conventional wisdom that would make you say, okay, I get it. But when there's this much difference to the eyes in what you're seeing, right? Not the numbers, the eyes. That's where you risk the guys in the clubhouse going, that's wrong.
I sort of half jokingly said earlier, but there's a part that you're almost hoping for just a truly disastrous start for Jordan Montgomery to sort of make this easier.
Maybe.
because he's been mediocre. He's been mediocre for a stretch here, not bad enough that made anything obvious to do.
He's been really bad at home, and maybe there are players on the Diamondbacks who won't speak out about the temperature and the swampiness of Chase Field, and maybe they're sympathetic to the way Jordan Montgomery struggled at Chase Field, or maybe they think he made excuses after that last start at Chase Field. I'm not sure about the internal dynamic, but there is one. I can guarantee you that. There is an internal dynamic.
The funny thing is we always use the phrase, 6 pitchers for 5 spots. That's a good problem to have. Even a good problem is still a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of, they're going to have to figure it out eventually, I would think, unless they commit to the 6-man rotation.
Well, what confuses me here is that the Diamondbacks are very analytical driven. You've written about this a lot on ArizonaSports.com over the years in the Mike Hazen era, Dan, and we have some of the more simple numbers in front of us. They have some of the more advanced numbers, but if you just look at it for basic things, and you were mentioning eye-tested numbers, both are just as glaring. You look at the 4-seamer for Ryne Nelson this year, his primary pitch. Hitters are only hitting 250 off of it this year. Jordan Montgomery, he's more of a mixed guy, but he gets in the sinker the most. Hitters are hitting 377 off of that pitch this year. It is not even close in terms of the primary stuff between these two guys. And again, I got to believe that part of this is motivated by they have the data in front of him. But even if you're just going through Baseball Savant pages right now, it's just not even close. No. And the indications for Montgomery are that he's headed in the wrong direction right now.
And if you wanted to lean on the excuse, which the Diamondbacks will, that Ryne Nelson, well, he's the one with bullpen experience, you don't have a role that needs to be filled in the bullpen right now. So there's that logic, it falls apart. If there was a glaring need for somebody, for a guy to miss bats in the bullpen, right-handed firearm, then yeah, you could say, okay, that does make sense. But in terms of the composition of the bullpen, the pieces are already there. So this is going to be interesting how this thing plays out. And Jordan Montgomery gets the ball today. And I'm just hoping that, again, if Torey Lovullo is going to side with the veteran, and you know how he is with loyalty, then I hope he has something really, really good to kind of have his managers back. Yeah.
Sorry. And where this gets complicated is if you are now within a game or two of the Mets and this race starts to become a lot more important, you can't just be giving these games to Jordan Montgomery to try and snap him out of something. You're in a real race here pretty soon if things start to slide just a little bit.
Thanks for watching Bickley and Murata. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.